What's up, my wizards? It's Deb from SBMTG on the YouTube.com down there with like magic. And Aether Revolt spoilers have slowed to a crawl after a couple of days of productivity. So I figured now would be a good time to show you what cards I'd like to see in Aether Revolt. I do this every time a new set's going to come out. I give you a few cards that I've been working on and would kind of like to see in the new set. I ask you to tell me in the comments how broken my cards are and to invent new cards of your own in the comments section. So this is always a fun video. You get a lot of people that are supportive and like, oh, nice cards, and this is my card. We get a lot of people in the comments who are like, these cards are busted and terrible. So, like, a lot of fun for everybody, whether you're a supporter or you just want to tell me how wrong I am. So let's take a look at the top 5 or 6, let's do top X cards that we want in Aether Revolt. You know what I hope? I hope that energy is still a thing in Aether Revolt. Right now we haven't seen many cards that produce energy, but we've only seen like 10 cards in the set, so it's definitely not ruled out. And I really think it's a cool mechanic. I like having another resource I can both generate and manage. It's cool. It's competitive too. You know, it can't be argued that it's pushed Aetherworks Marvel into the top 8 of a bunch of tournaments as of late. So energy is a fun and competitive mechanic, and I'd like to see it continue. So with that in mind, here's fuel for thought right here. It's pretty simple, honestly. It's just 1 black mana for a sorcery. Target opponent discards a card. You get 2 energy. Well, Thoughtseize, this is not. It's not like incredibly broken or anything. At least not from what I can tell. If they get to choose what they want to discard, we're in a format right now that has like Madness and Delirium, so there are definitely downsides to this. But when I was building the mono black discard deck, I really wanted like a main deckable card that just was 1 mana, they discard a card. We've had cards like that in the past. It hasn't been too serious. There's that thing from like Dissension or Guild Pact or something that like made them discard a card and had Haunted. So we've seen stuff like this before. It's not that big of a deal. But I do think that it's at least playable, especially if you're trying to build a discard-centric deck. And we've got Harsh Scrutiny at 1 mana right now, but it's not like entirely playable, especially in the main board, at least from what I experienced. So I'd like something that not only makes them discard a card for 1 mana, but also gives us a little bit of energy very early in the game. I'd play this over Attuned to Aether, at least. That's a good card. Before I get into like the really funky stuff, I'm just going to stop off and talk about a couple of pieces of removal that I think we could really use right now. So with that in mind, let me go ahead and show you this. This is Bind to the Blind Eternities, and it's just a Planeswalker killer. We need this right now, though. It's white and a black for an instant. Exile target Planeswalker. Again, keep it simple. Why don't we have this card yet? Why hasn't Wizards just made a thing that just kills Planeswalkers? Like, I understand with Ruinous Path and Hero's Downfall, those are both cards that have a lot of versatility. They can always find a target, usually, whether you're playing against control or aggro. They will find a target because they can also kill creatures, and that's why they cost the extra mana. I get that. And maybe Planeswalkers aren't played enough to deserve some sort of, dedicated removal. I think they are now. I think that most decks play Planeswalkers in competitive standard environments. A lot of modern decks will play Walkers too. So I think this would just be a great sideboard piece that we could really use right now. I don't know. I feel like 2 mana is a lot. I don't want it to be just 1 mana though. 1 mana destroy target Planeswalker seems crazy. I think 2 mana exile it is a little bit, slightly more fair. But I also don't want it to cost 3 mana because like, just reprint Hero's Downfall at that point, keep printing Ruinous Path, whatever you want to do. Even though, Awaken, we can't keep reprinting Ruinous Path, but we could print Hero's Downfall again. That would be really easy. But with that said, I really would just like to see 1 card that is a dedicated piece of Planeswalker removal. I feel like it's time for that. While we're talking about dedicated removal, I'll show you something else that is dedicated removal. This is Vehicular Homicide right here. Another pun name. I know how much you love those. This is just 2 mana. That's a red and a green for an instant with deal 4 damage to target vehicle. Then deal 2 damage to any creatures that crewed that vehicle this turn. Alright, so the wording may be slightly off on the second part of this card here, but you know what I'm trying to say, basically. If a creature was used to crew it, it also takes 2 damage. 2 damage doesn't sound like a lot, but this could easily be a 2 for 1 for just 2 mana, and so it's probably really, really stupidly powerful, honestly. But great sideboard piece against the vehicles decks, really holds them in check, and I don't think red and green are very played colors together right now, at least. You got Aetherworks Marvel, so that would definitely go in the sideboard of those decks. And the red-green energy deck is still out there. So, I mean, it could go in those boards, too, against, basically the mirror match. Because the red-green energy decks play Smuggler's Copter, too. This is definitely a piece of removal that kills Smuggler's Copter, kills Heart of Kuran, and will kill things like, a Toolcraft Exemplar, Veteran Motorist, so that's important. Thraben Inspector, that's important. So this could easily lead to 2 for 1s against vehicles decks. And that might be too powerful, but just for a piece of sideboard tech, it seems like it's fair. Although, again, this could just completely destroy the idea of vehicles decks. But people are probably kind of happy about that. We need something that really is a deterrent to playing Smuggler's Copter and Heart of Karam. We really need a piece of removal that makes people fear playing those cards. All right, let's get into the wacky stuff here, because if I'm going to do this video, I'm going to make a couple of wacky cards. That's how it is. I want to make fun cards. And I like artifacts, and this is an artifact-themed block, and you guys that have been watching the channel for a while know that whenever I try to make artifacts, they end up being like pretty broken. So let's hope that doesn't happen this time when I show you Aether Stone, which is a working title. I get that that's kind of bland, but still sounds cool. Aether Stone. It's just 3 mana for a legendary artifact, and it's got, whenever you play a spell, you get an energy counter. And I'm sorry, by the way, I should have mentioned this at Fuel for Thought, but I don't have the symbols for energy. Sorry about that. On my set editing program. But anyway, whenever you play a spell, you get E. And whenever you pay any amount of energy, you deal 1 damage to target creature or player, and you can pay 4 energy to draw a card. Now, just to be clear, that's when you pay any amount of energy, you get a TIM. You know, you get a ping, basically. So if I pay 1 energy for a thing, I get 1 ping. If I pay 7 energy for a thing, I get 1 ping. So let's just clear that up right now. And of course, when you use its own ability, you get a ping. So that's kind of cool. And then you'll draw cards, and that'll allow you to play more spells, so you get more energy, you do more pings. This seems like it would go really well in like a Dynavolt tower deck. So there's that. That seems obvious. Although they compete for the same spot on the curve, and that might be a little awkward. But I don't want it to be super easy. Like, I don't want this to cost 2. You know what I mean? Into Dynavolt Tower, that would be pretty nice. But also, like in a Dynavolt Tower deck, this takes up slots that spells would take up. So, I don't know. Like, I'm not really sure how much play this thing would actually see, but it does an awful lot of stuff. Like, an awful lot of stuff. And the idea of, like, whenever, you know, you pay an energy cost, you get a ping, that could actually be abused, especially in decks that will pay 2 or 3 energy cost in 1 turn. And this turns, like, Servant of the Conduit into a pinger. It turns Aether Hub into a pinger. So, I can see how this could be really good, but 3 mana, you know, it takes up slots in your deck. It's legendary. There are definitely things that would deter you from playing, you know, the Aether Stone deck, basically. But I think it's a neat card. It would just have to find a place. I don't think, for the first time that I've like ever made an artifact, I don't think that this is too broken, but I'm sure I've overlooked something. But speaking of fun cards, I always have to go out on a limb and make one card. In like all of these videos, you'll know that this is a trend. That I like to make a card that can just end the game. I like to make a really stupid card that you'll never see. You know, they won't print this. But in this case, they won't print it. It's a big dumb thing that can end the game immediately. But like, it's not entirely good. Let me show it to you. This is Doomsday Device right here. Doomsday Device is a 5 mana artifact. It's a vehicle, and it's a 20/20 with crew 20. And when you crew Doomsday Device, you destroy all other creatures. Okay, so again, this is like not good enough to be that broken. I mean, first of all, you have to build like the entire deck around it to get to crew 20. You'd have to play almost nothing but creatures, and then when you finally do crew it, like all those creatures that are on your board die. So do your opponents, and you swing in for 20 and theoretically win the game. But you don't know. You don't know. Your opponent could have a murder right there in their hand. And that could really ruin your day. Although you would have Wrath of God, like you would have Damnation. You know, you would have swept the entire board in that case. But it would be an awful lot of setup to get to that. So this, again, just looks like pure fun. It could be good in, like, EDH, you know. Maybe Modern or Legacy have decks that could crew this very quickly. But, like, in Legacy, you're just playing, like, what, Phyrexian Dreadnought, if you're trying to do something like that, you know. I think 5 mana is a little prohibitive for the faster old formats. So I don't think that this, like, breaks Magic. I think crew 20 is hard to get to no matter who you're talking to and what format. You know, you're going to have to build the deck in a very particular way to get there. But again, just for the sake of fun, I really wish that this card existed. But now it's time to get to some Planeswalkers. Now we're pretty sure that Tezzeret's going to be a Planeswalker in this set. We know that he got a dual deck version, so he'll almost certainly get a Planeswalker in this set. And Ajani they've already spoiled, but I'm still going to show you my Ajani. Like I said, I don't care. My Johnny's better. But let me show you the Tezzeret first, because as of the recording of this video, we've seen the dual decks, the Planeswalker decks version of Tezzeret, but we haven't seen the actual main set version of Tezzeret yet. So Let me show you what I've got. He's weird. Just a warning. This is Tezzeret right here. I don't have, like, comma name for him or anything, but Tezzeret is 4 mana. That's 2 generic, a black and a blue, for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. You can +1 him to have target artifact you control lose all abilities and become a copy of target creature until your next turn. You can -3 him, and you may put target artifact creature with converted mana cost 6 or less from your hand onto the battlefield, and you can -8 to search your library for any number of artifacts and put them onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. Alright, so first of all, the obvious function is to throw out 6 mana Gearhulks. On turn 4, Tezzeret on turn 4 into a Noxious Gearhulk seems really good. You got a big fat body to protect your Tezzeret, and you just killed a creature. Yes, that's a great interaction. But it does have the cap on it, so you can't just throw out a Darksteel Colossus in Modern. You can't just throw out a Metalwork Colossus in Standard, So it's got a cap on it, but you can still get Gearhulks out of it, and that's second ability seems good for that reason alone, more or less. And the ultimate is obviously nutso, but it takes a very long time to get to this Tezzeret's ultimate. And once you do, you want your ultimates to win the game anyway, and this could do that, depending on how you built your deck. So this Tezzeret I like because he's different. We just saw them spoil a Ajani, and their Ajani is, sort of the way that semi-competitive planeswalkers are designed nowadays. First ability is card advantage, second ability kill a guy, third ability good ultimate. It's like Ob Nixilis, it's like Sorin, it's like Jason Raveler of Secrets. Card advantage, do something to a creature on the board, good ultimate. I'm just like, I understand that's the formula, and that usually makes a good planeswalker, but I just want something a little bit different, and even though this thing does some weird stuff, it still protects itself, and it still gets a form of card advantage, in a way. And it leads to cheating stupid stuff out, but not unfairly. It's not like we couldn't get to turn 4 Noxious Gearhulk already in this standard if we wanted to, so I don't think we're breaking anything. It's just a different planeswalker that definitely could have applications in, like, blue-black artifact decks right now. But now I guess I got to show you my Ajani, see how it stacks up to the new Ajani. To me, as far as the casting cost on the new Ajani, they really went the wrong direction. I want another 3 mana planeswalker in this standard. We've got Liliana, we've got Nissa, Voice of Zendikar, which is not seeing a whole lot of play right now. Liliana is seeing all the play. But I think, 3 mana planeswalkers are starting to become a little bit more normalized, and I really, really wanted Ajani to be a 3 mana planeswalker. So let me show you what I've got here. This is just Ajani, the Protector, I guess? I don't know. Ajani, he's a cat. He's 3 mana, that's 1 and 2 white for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. And he's got +1, you gain 1 life. Until your next turn, if damage would be dealt to Ajani, instead prevent that damage and remove 1 loyalty counter from Ajani. He's also got -2. Until your next turn, if damage would be dealt to you or another planeswalker you control, you may redirect that damage to Ajani. And his ultimate is -6. Search your library for a planeswalker card, put it onto the battlefield, shuffle your library afterwards. Loyalty manipulation is the name of the game with this thing. You want to give it loyalty in the early game, sort of protects itself with that first ability. Not outright, but sort of protects itself with the first ability. The second ability is for when you think you're in danger and you want the Ajani to take the damage, whether he dies or not. And then the third ability is obviously just to facilitate you getting more stuff on the battlefield. That is card advantage. And it's not really that hard to get to it, again, by 6 turns. So this is the Ajani I wanted to see. I don't think that he's broken by any stretch, but I do think that he's playable specifically in that Super Friends deck. Of course, the new Ajani is too, so I can't really be too mad. I just didn't want a 6 mana planeswalker, and I just don't think that's great, honestly. That Ajani could have cost 5 the way they've made him and still not been broken, at least from what I can tell. This thing, though, I really want to know your opinion on it because I think some people might think that he's really bad, and some people might think he's too good. So I'm really interested in your opinion on this Ajani, even though they've already spoiled their Ajani. Speaking of something that I really want to get your opinion on, I've just got one more card that I want to show you today, and it's not even something I want to be an Aether Revolt. This is just a card that I've been designing for like 12 years, and every time I bring it up to a group of Magic players, it starts a huge debate. So that's what I want to try and do now. I really want to know how you feel about the idea of a flash land. Again, I've been working on this card for a minute, and it's still fairly simple. Basically, flash land is just a land. It's got flash, and it enters the battlefield tapped. You tap it to add a colorless to your mana pool, and when you tap it, you have to exile a card from your hand. Now, this card has taken a lot of different forms over the course of its lifespan. When I was younger, the card was just like land, flash, comes to play tapped, adds any color of mana to your mana pool. That would be ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So like, don't do that. And then eventually it was like City of Brass, but it had flash, deal a damage to you when you tap it. And then it was City of Brass, but it didn't give you any color of mana, just colorless plus City of Brass deal you damage when you tap. And enters the battlefield tap. But even that still feels a little bit too powerful. So now you see that it's arrived at its current form right here. Instead of taking a damage, we are really suffering a penalty and exiling a card from our hand whenever we tap this thing. But it is a really fast mana. We can play it at the end of our opponent's turn on turn 2 and open our turn 2 with 2 mana on the battlefield. In Standard, that is incredibly powerful, and it's the whole reason they don't print Lana War Elves or Elvish Mystic in Standard anymore, is because they don't want that to be a thing. And with land, it gets even trickier, honestly, because lands are free. This is essentially free mana for the rest of the game, by the way. So that's just fantastic. I know that lands are always free mana, but the ability to play a land on your opponent's turn is pretty good. Like with Natural Connection, we don't really see that card in Standard because it costs 3 mana. But if you just play a land for free on your opponent's turn, I imagine nearly every deck in the format would take advantage of that. So it's got a really steep downside in this case, but it needs that. Again, newer players may not see how powerful this card is, but older players are going to be like, dude, you can't do that, So let me know. Let me know how you feel about this. Is it suitably nerfed to actually maybe have a shot at being a real card one day? Or will a flash land just never exist because that's too much? Seriously, I have had many discussions about the potential of this card existing for 10 years now with many different play groups and different people at card shops and stuff, or just people I meet in my daily life that play Magic. I'm like, what if there was a land that had flash? I'd like to get in this conversation. So I want to know how you guys feel about this. And I know I've already said that, but again, I like sparking this conversation because I've heard this conversation a bunch of times, and I feel like I've heard all the, fors and against here. So surprise me and show me that I haven't by going to the comments section and telling me how busted this is. But that's it for this one. I'm tapped out. That's all the cards that I want in Aether Revolt. There's actually probably like 12 more cards I want in Aether Revolt, but I don't want to be here all night. Show me what you'd like to see in Aether Revolt. In the comments, you can always just put like, this is the card I want to see. Name of card, mana cost, creature, blah. Just do that. I always like to read what cards you guys come up with. I think designing cards is one of the most fun parts of being a Magic player. So show me what you got down there in the comments section in the sideboard. And I will see you guys later. If you enjoyed the content, like it. That's just do that. That's really awesome. When you do it, it helps me out a lot. You can leave a comment down there, and you can sub if you're new. And I'll see you guys later. I'm Deb from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.